All right, so we're diving deep into anandamide and 2-AG today.
Yeah,
From what you sent over, it looks like we'll be getting into some pretty serious research.
absolutely.
These key endocannabinoids, clearly, you want to know how they're made, how they're broken down,
Yeah,
the intricate roles they play in the endocannabinoid system.
for sure.
And we will be talking about that. We're getting into some PhD level detail here.
Yeah.
We'll be talking about CB1 and CB2 receptors, G proteins, even signaling pathways like MAPK.
It's really fascinating stuff.
But don't worry, we'll guide you through it all.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting how recently we've come to understand this whole system.
Mm-hmm.
Like, think about it. The endocannabinoid system itself was only discovered in the early 1990s by Dr. Mitchullam's lab.
I know, it's mind-blowing to me that such a crucial signaling network,
Right.
one that impacts so many bodily processes, was essentially hidden for so long.
Yeah, we were just walking around not even knowing it was there.
Talk about a late bloomer.
Really is remarkable. And then just a few years after uncovering the system itself, the same lab identified anandamide and 2-AG,
Wow.
the two main endogenous ligands that interact with those cannabinoid receptors.
Okay.
So, this discovery truly completed the picture. It showed us how the system actually functions.
So it's like finding the missing pieces of a puzzle.
Exactly.
We had the framework, but now we know what makes it all work.
Yeah, and now we can really zoom in on,
Okay.
how these endocannabinoids are produced in the first place.
Yeah.
Both anandamide and 2-AG originate from a fatty acid called arachidonic acid,
Okay.
but their creation follows these distinct enzymatic pathways.
Like two different sets of instructions.
It's like having two chefs in the kitchen,
Okay.
each with their own recipe for a unique dish.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
One of the things that I found really interesting is that these endocannabinoids are made on demand, right?
Yes.
Rather than stored up and released later.
Yeah.
What's the significance of that?
That's a great question. I think it speaks to the very dynamic nature of endocannabinoid signaling.
Okay.
Instead of having a stockpile ready to go, these molecules are synthesized precisely when and where they're needed, allowing for very tight regulation.
So it's like cooking a meal only when you're hungry, rather than having a fridge full of leftovers.
Yeah.
That might go bad.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that analogy.
And, just as there are pathways for creating these endocannabinoids,
Right.
there are also specific enzymes that break them down.
Yeah.
This ensures that their signaling effects are short-lived,
Okay.
preventing overstimulation.
Right. I remember those enzyme names.
Yeah.
FAAH for breaking down anandamide and MAGL for 2-AG.
Exactly.
So it's like a delicate dance between production and degradation,
It is.
ensuring just the right amount of signaling at the right time.
Absolutely.
So now let's talk about how these endocannabinoids actually exert their effects.
Okay.
They do this by binding to those cannabinoid receptors,
Yes.
primarily CB1 and CB2.
Mm-hmm.
And these receptors are part of a large family called G protein-coupled receptors, or GPCRs for short.
Right.
And GPCRs are involved in a huge range of cellular signaling processes throughout the body.
They are.
So from the research that you sent,
Mm-hmm.
it seems like things get really interesting when anandamide or 2-AG binds to a CD1 or CB2 receptor.
Okay.
Like it triggers a cascade of events inside the cell, right?
You're exactly right.
Right.
First, there's a shift in the shape of the receptor itself,
Okay.
what we call a conformational change.
Okay.
And this activates a G protein, which interacts with molecules called GTP and GDP,
Okay.
causing its subunits to separate.
Okay, so we've got this receptor changing shape,
Yeah.
activating a G protein,
Mhm.
and then the G protein splitting apart.
Right.
Where do we go from there?
Well, those separated subunits then set off a chain reaction of downstream signaling cascades,
Okay.
ultimately influencing a wide array of cellular processes. You can think of it like a domino effect, with each step triggering the next.
Okay.
And these cascades can impact some crucial pathways, like the CAMP-PKA pathway,
Right.
the PLCD-GIP3 pathway,
Right.
and even the MAPK pathways.
Those names are a mouthful.
They are.
Can we break down what those pathways actually do in simpler terms?
Sure.
Like, how do these pathways affect things I actually experience?
Yeah,
Like my mood or whether I feel pain?
absolutely. Let's delve into that.
Wow.
So the CAMP-PKA pathway, for instance, is a key player in regulating various cellular functions.
Okay.
And by influencing CAMP production,
Right.
CB1 and CB2 receptor activation can impact processes like cell growth
Okay.
and even how genes are expressed.
So by tweaking that one pathway,
Yeah,
anandamide and 2-AG can have a ripple effect on all sorts of things going on in my cells.
precisely.
Wow.
And then there's the PLCD-AGIP3 pathway,
Okay.
which is all about regulating intracellular calcium levels.
Okay.
Calcium is essential for a ton of cellular processes.
From muscle contraction to nerve impulse transmission.
Wow.
You can think of it as a sort of cellular messenger relaying signals throughout the cell.
Okay, so how do anandamide and 2-AG fit into this calcium signaling system?
Well, when they bind to those CB1 or CB2 receptors,
Okay.
they can activate an enzyme called phospholipase C, or PLC.
Okay.
And PLC cleaves a molecule called PIP2, which generates two important signaling molecules, DAG and IP3.
Okay, so we're creating these two new molecules, DAG and IP3.
Right.
What do they do?
So DAG, or diacylglycerol, remains within the cell membrane
Okay.
and can activate other enzymes.
Right.
Meanwhile, IP3, or inositol triphosphate, travels to the endoplasmic reticulum,
Okay.
which is a kind of storage compartment for calcium within the cell.
And what happens when IP3 reaches this calcium storage unit?
It binds to receptors on the endoplasmic reticulum,
Yeah.
causing a release of calcium into the cytoplasm.
Okay.
And this sudden surge in calcium levels then sets off a whole host of downstream effects.
Oh, wow. Depending on the specific cell type and the signaling pathways involved.
Okay, so it's like a chain reaction
It is.
with anandamide and 2-AG ultimately leading to this release of calcium
Right.
that can have all sorts of effects on the cell.
Exactly.
And we can't forget about those MAPK pathways,
Right.
PRK, JNK, and P38.
Yeah, these pathways are often activated in response to cellular stress or growth factors.
Okay.
And they play a crucial role in processes like cell growth, differentiation, and even how a cell responds to stress.
So by influencing these pathways,
Yeah,
anandamide and 2-AG can affect how cells grow, change, and cope with stress.
that's right.
Okay.
And remember, all of this complexity stems from just two tiny molecules, anandamide and 2-AG.
Wow.
It really highlights their far-reaching influence within the body.
Yeah, it's amazing how these seemingly simple molecules
Right.
can have such a profound impact on so many different processes.
They can.
So we've covered how they're made,
Yeah.
how they're broken down, and how they interact with these complex signaling pathways.
Right.
What's next in our deep dive?
Now that we've got all that cellular level stuff established with anandamide and 2-AG,
Right.
let's connect that to like real-world effects.
Okay, so how does all this intricate signaling translate into changes in things like my mood, my appetite, or how I experience pain?
Right.
Like I'm ready to see the bigger picture.
Yeah. Well, remember how we talked about that CAMP-PK pathway being involved in regulating a variety of cellular functions?
Yes.
One of the key ways anandamide and 2-AG exert their influence is by modulating this pathway.
Right. You mentioned that they can influence things like cell growth and gene expression through this pathway.
Yeah.
But how does that relate to my everyday experience?
Okay. So think about it this way.
Okay.
By tweaking the activity of the CAMP-PK pathway,
Right.
anandamide and 2-AG can indirectly influence the release of neurotransmitters,
Okay.
like dopamine and serotonin in the brain.
Wait, so those feel-good neurotransmitters that we always hear about
Yes.
are actually affected by these endocannabinoids?
Exactly.
Right.
And dopamine and serotonin play crucial roles in regulating mood, motivation,
Right.
and even how we perceive pleasure.
Okay.
So by influencing their release,
Right.
anandamide and 2-AG can have a real impact on our emotional state.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So when people talk about feeling relaxed or happy after exercise,
Yeah.
could that be partly due to an increase in anandamide levels?
It's certainly a possibility.
Really?
Studies have shown that exercise can indeed boost anandamide levels.
Oh, wow.
And since anandamide can influence those mood-regulating neurotransmitters,
Right.
it could contribute to that post-workout feeling of well-being.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, what about pain?
Okay.
How do anandamide and 2-AG tie into our experience of pain?
Well, remember the PLCD-AGIP3 pathway and how it affects intracellular calcium levels?
Right, you mentioned that calcium acts like a messenger within the cell.
Exactly.
Okay.
And when it comes to pain perception,
Right.
calcium signaling plays a crucial role in transmitting pain signals from the site of injury to the brain.
Okay.
And anandamide and 2-AG, by modulating this pathway, can influence how those pain signals are transmitted and processed.
So they can essentially turn down the volume on those pain signals.
That's one way to think about it.
Okay.
By influencing calcium signaling,
Right.
they can dampen the transmission of pain signals,
Okay.
leading to a reduction in pain perception.
So it's not just about blocking pain receptors or anything like that.
Right.
It's about fine-tuning the entire signaling system that underlies our experience of pain.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that's what makes the endocannabinoid system such a promising target for therapeutic interventions.
Okay.
It's not about brute force blocking
Right.
or mimicking specific signals. It's about subtly modulating the system to restore balance and promote well-being.
Yeah, I'm starting to understand why there's so much excitement around the therapeutic potential of this system.
Yeah.
But what about those MAPK pathways we discussed earlier?
Yeah.
How do they fit into all of this?
The MPK pathways, especially ERK, JNK, MP38, they're involved in a wide range of cellular processes, including inflammation and cell survival.
Right. You mentioned that they play a role in how cells respond to stress.
Exactly. Right. And it turns out that anandamide and 2-AG can modulate these pathways as well.
Really?
This means they can influence how cells respond to inflammation and other stressors, potentially offering protection against damage and promoting healing.
So it's like they're helping our cells cope with the challenges they face on a daily basis.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay.
They're not just involved in acute responses like mood and pain.
Right.
They're also playing a role in long-term processes, like inflammation and cell survival.
This is incredible.
It is a pretty remarkable system.
It seems like anandamide and 2-AG are involved in so many different aspects of our health and well-being.
They are.
I'm curious, are there any situations where the levels of these endocannabinoids might be out of whack? Could that contribute to certain health problems?
That's a great question and an area of active research.
Okay.
Well, we don't have all the answers yet.
Right.
There's growing evidence that imbalances in endocannabinoid signaling could be involved in a variety of conditions.
Like what?
Well, research suggests that disruptions in endocannabinoid signaling may play a role in conditions like chronic pain, anxiety disorders, and even neurodegenerative diseases.
So if we could find ways to restore balance to the endocannabinoid system, could that potentially help treat or even prevent these conditions?
That's the hope.
Wow.
And it's why there's so much excitement surrounding research into cannabinoid-based therapies.
Yeah, from what I read, there seems to be a lot of focus on developing drugs that target specific enzymes involved in endocannabinoid metabolism.
Yeah.
Like those FAH inhibitors we talked about earlier.
Exactly. By inhibiting the enzymes that break down anandamide and 2-AG, we can potentially increase their levels and enhance their signaling activity.
And that could lead to therapeutic benefits for conditions where endocannabinoid signaling is deficient.
Precisely.
Okay.
But it's not just about developing new drugs.
Right.
Researchers are also exploring the potential of natural compounds.
Oh, okay.
Like those found in cannabis to modulate the endocannabinoid system.
So there might be multiple avenues for harnessing the therapeutic potential of this system.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And as research continues, we're likely to uncover even more ways to target the endocannabinoid system for therapeutic benefits.
This is all so fascinating.
It is.
But I have to admit, my brain is starting to feel a bit overloaded with all this information.
I understand it's a lot to take in. But hopefully we've been able to break it down in a way that's both informative and engaging.
You definitely have.
Okay, good.
I feel like I've gained a whole new understanding of anandamide and 2-AG and their importance in the endocannabinoid system.
Yeah.
But maybe we can take a little break from the hard science for a moment.
Sure.
And talk about something a bit more concrete.
Okay. What did you have in mind?
You mentioned earlier that studies have shown a link between exercise and increased anandamide levels.
Right.
I'd love to hear more about that.
Absolutely. Let's dive into that research.
Okay.
One study that comes to mind was conducted on a group of runners.
Okay.
They found that after a 30-minute run, the runners had significantly elevated levels of anandamide in their bloodstream.
Okay.
Compared to a control group that didn't exercise.
Wow. That's pretty remarkable.
It is.
So just a moderate amount of exercise can have a measurable impact on our endocannabinoid system.
It certainly seems that way.
Wow.
And this particular study focused on running, but other forms of exercise have also been shown to boost anandamide levels.
So it's not just about pounding the pavement.
Right.
Any kind of physical activity can potentially benefit our endocannabinoid system.
That's the idea.
Okay.
And this is just one example of how lifestyle factors can influence endocannabinoid signaling.
Right.
There's also research exploring the effects of diet, stress management techniques, and even social interaction on the endocannabinoid system.
Wow, this is so encouraging to hear.
Yeah.
It means that we have some control over our own endocannabinoid health.
Exactly. It's not just about passively waiting for new drugs or therapies to come along.
Right.
We can take proactive steps to support our endocannabinoid system through healthy lifestyle choices.
I'm curious, what about diet?
Oh.
What kind of foods might support healthy endocannabinoid signaling?
Well, remember how we talked about anandamide and 2-AG being derived from arachidonic acid?
Right, that fatty acid is their building block.
Exactly.
Okay.
So ensuring we're getting enough of the right kinds of fats in our diet is important for supporting endocannabinoid synthesis.
What kinds of fats are we talking about?
Omega-3 fatty acids, found in foods like fatty fish. Flax seeds and walnuts are particularly important.
Okay.
They're precursors to endocannabinoids and can help ensure adequate production.
So adding more salmon and walnuts to my diet could actually boost my anandamide levels.
It's certainly a possibility.
Wow.
And there's also some evidence that other dietary compounds, like flavonoids found in fruits and vegetables, may have beneficial effects on the endocannabinoid system.
So a healthy, balanced diet is not just good for our overall health,
Right.
it's also good for our endocannabinoid system.
That's the takeaway.
Okay.
By making smart choices about what we eat and how we live, we can support the healthy functioning of this crucial signaling system.
This is all so empowering.
It is.
It makes me feel like I have more agency over my own health and well-being.
And that's exactly what we want you to take away from this deep dive.
Okay.
Knowledge is power. And by understanding how the endocannabinoid system works, we can make informed choices to support its optimal function.
Well, I definitely feel like I've gained a wealth of knowledge from this conversation.
I'm glad to hear that.
But I'm curious, what about the future?
Okay.
What are some of the most exciting areas of research in the field of cannabinoid science right now?
That's a great question. There are so many fascinating avenues of research being pursued right now.
Yeah.
One area that's particularly exciting is the investigation of the endocannabinoid system's role in neurodegenerative diseases.
Okay.
Like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's.
Yeah, I've heard a bit about that.
Yeah.
What's the connection there?
Well, research suggests that the endocannabinoid system may play a role in protecting brain cells from damage and promoting their survival.
So could boosting endocannabinoid signaling potentially slow down or even prevent the progression of these diseases?
That's the hope. And there's some early evidence to suggest that it might be possible.
Rare.
For example, some studies have shown that cannabinoids can reduce inflammation in the brain, which is thought to be a key factor in neurodegenerative diseases.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So there's potential for cannabinoid-based therapies to not only treat symptoms, but also modify the course of these devastating diseases.
Exactly.
Wow.
And that's just one example of the groundbreaking potential of cannabinoid research.
Right.
Other areas of active investigation include the endocannabinoid system's role in cancer, autoimmune disorders, and even mental health conditions like PTSD.
It seems like the possibilities are endless.
They really are.
Yeah.
And as our understanding of the endocannabinoid system continues to grow, we're likely to see even more innovative applications of cannabinoid-based therapies.
I'm so glad we had this deep dive.
Me too.
It's opened my eyes to a whole new world of scientific possibilities and given me hope for the future of medicine.
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah. It's really fascinating stuff.
You know, it's truly remarkable to think about how much progress has been made in cannabinoid research.
It is.
In such a short time.
Yeah.
Just a few decades ago.
Right.
We barely knew this system existed.
We had no idea.
And now we're uncovering its incredible potential for treating a wide range of conditions.
It's a really exciting time.
It really is a testament to the power of scientific curiosity.
Absolutely.
And the relentless pursuit of knowledge.
I'd agree.
Speaking of knowledge,
there's
one study that you mentioned earlier that really piqued my interest. It was about the potential benefits of increasing anandamide levels for anxiety.
Oh, yes. That was a fascinating study. Conducted on mice. Essentially, they used a drug that inhibits the enzyme, FAAH, the one that breaks down anandamide, to boost anandamide levels in the brains of these mice.
So they were basically giving the anandamide a longer lifespan, allowing it to exert its effects for a longer period.
Yeah, exactly. And the results were quite compelling.
Wow.
The mice that received the FAAH inhibitor showed significant reductions in anxiety-like behaviors in a variety of tests.
That's incredible.
It is interesting.
So just by boosting anandamide levels, they were able to alleviate anxiety in these mice.
That's what the study suggests.
Wow.
And while we can't directly extrapolate these findings to humans, it does offer promising evidence for the potential of targeting the endocannabinoid system for anxiety disorders.
I know from personal experience how debilitating anxiety can be.
Oh, yeah.
So this kind of research gives me a lot of hope.
Yeah, I understand. And what's particularly exciting is that targeting the endocannabinoid system could potentially offer a more targeted and effective approach to treating anxiety with fewer side effects than traditional medications.
That would be a game changer for so many people.
It really would.
So where do we go from here? What are the next steps in translating this research into real-world treatments for anxiety?
Well, the next step would be to conduct clinical trials in humans to see if these findings replicate. And that's already happening.
Oh, wow.
There are several pharmaceutical companies currently developing FAAH inhibitors for the treatment of anxiety and other conditions.
That's great news.
It is.
So we might actually see these therapies becoming available in the near future.
It's certainly a possibility. And it's not just FAAH inhibitors that are being explored. Researchers are also investigating other ways to modulate the endocannabinoid system, such as developing drugs that target CB1 and CB2 receptors directly.
It seems like there's a whole new wave of cannabinoid-based therapies on the horizon.
Absolutely. And it's an incredibly exciting time to be following this research.
This deep dive has been an eye-opening experience for me.
I'm glad.
I've gone from knowing very little about Anandamide and 2-AG to understanding their intricate roles in the endocannabinoid system and their vast therapeutic potential.
It's amazing how much we've learned.
It really is.
In such a short amount of time.
Yeah. I'm left with a sense of wonder and excitement for what the future holds for cannabinoid research.
Yeah.
Who knows what groundbreaking discoveries await us?
Indeed. And as we continue to explore the complexities of the endocannabinoid system, we're sure to uncover even more innovative ways to harness its power for improving human health and well-being.
Well, I'm definitely eager to see what the future holds.
Me too.
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with me today.
It was my pleasure.
It's been an incredibly enlightening and inspiring conversation.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
And to all our listeners out there.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Anandamide and 2-AG.
It's fascinating stuff.
Until next time, keep learning and keep seeking knowledge.
Absolutely.
It's the key to unlocking a healthier and more fulfilling future.
I agree with that.